This webinar and the materials, such as videos contained therein, contain personal and/or confidential information and is intended for TDSB internal use only. Any disclosure, copying, storage, or distribution of these materials is strictly prohibited by the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, Policy P094, Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy, and Operational Procedure PR676, Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy. We acknowledge we are hosted on the lands of the Mississaugas of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Wendat. We also recognize the enduring presence of all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples.
Welcome to Part 3 of Developing Emotional Literacy. This webinar is about teaching emotional vocabulary, moving beyond happy, mad, and sad. This third webinar in the series, brought to you by the Speech Language Pathology Department at the TDSB, focuses on teaching emotion words to improve emotional literacy skills. First, we will talk about why teaching vocabulary is so important. We will focus on sparkly or interesting emotion words. We will learn how to create kid-friendly definitions. And finally, we'll get a chance to give it a try. As SLPs, we believe teaching vocabulary is one of the most important areas to develop strong oral language and literacy skills. First, teaching specific words helps kids decode or read words and understand what they are reading. It also helps them write more interesting ideas and stories. It helps their mental health and well-being by helping them express their feelings in better ways, which helps them self-regulate. And finally, teaching vocabulary helps their social communication, because kids need a lot of words to play cooperatively and keep good conversations going. The ideas in this slide come from the book Bringing Words to Life by Isabel Beck and others. They talk about teaching tiers or levels of vocabulary. So just like this cake has tiers, we can look at the tiers of vocabulary. The first word, happy, we could describe as a tier 1 word or a 10-cent word. It's an everyday conversational word. Next, let's look at $100 words or tier 2 words. They are common words, but they're more often written. The third tier involves $1 million words. These are rare words that are often domain specific, often found in textbooks also. So when teaching vocabulary, we want to focus on tier 2 or $100 words. So we would suggest you look through your storybook and choose 2 or 3 words that are $100 words that you could explain before reading the book. You could call them words that sparkle. I like to bring in my sparkle wand when I teach sparkly words. So then you could explain what they mean in a kid-friendly way, or you could act out the meaning of the word with visuals. Here is another idea when teaching the meaning of emotion words. You can use paint chips from home centers to create gradients or levels of feelings. The lighter shades show smaller feelings, leading to more and more intense feelings with stronger colors. This is just an example that I made at home. Here are some key points when making kid-friendly definitions with your students or kids. First, explain the meaning in everyday language that is easy to understand and related to the child's background knowledge. Next, try asking kids what they think it means and create the definition together. Use pictures, videos, gestures, or objects to explain the meaning as much as possible. You may even want to talk about what the word does not mean. For example, excited does not mean bored. When kids learn new words, understanding the word comes before being able to say the word. It takes time to learn the new words and use the new words in speaking and writing. And after using the words across many situations. So as we can see here, we want to introduce the word and then we want to give opportunities to hear and use the word throughout the day. So at breakfast, in the classroom, at story time, in many different times during the day. Remember that repetition is key. Rereading different versions of the same stories or watching different versions of a movie helps the child hear the words many times in different situations. So here we're going to do an example of creating kid-friendly definitions. So in this first definition of the word excited, the dictionary definition often uses words that are more complex than the actual word. So here, excited in a dictionary, in the Merriam-Webster dictionary, is having, showing, or characterized by a heightened state of energy, enthusiasm, and eagerness. That's not really kid-friendly if we were to read that to our kids or students when we're trying to teach that word. So let's look at a kid-friendly definition. A kid-friendly definition would be the way you feel when something special is about to happen. Ask the kids to think of times that they felt excited. So for example, birthday parties, sleepovers, field trips. Then use the word at different times of the day and in different places. For example, in a book, song, activity centers, outdoor exploring, meal times. So give lots of chances to let the child use the new word. There's a link on this slide for a website called Word Hippo that's a great resource for creating describing words. It has synonyms, which are words that have similar meaning, and antonyms, which have opposite meanings. Let's give it a try. First, choose a book to read with your child or student. Before reading the story to the children, read it ahead of time and choose one or two emotion words to talk about. These feeling words may be stated in the story, or they may need to be inferred or guessed. Then create some kid-friendly definitions of the emotion words with your child or students. Finally, read the story and emphasize these new feeling or emotion words. We have provided you with some resources from the Speech Language Pathology Department to help build emotional literacy and specifically to build emotional vocabulary skills. These resources are provided in your resource list. So I'll click on the first link. This is a teacher handout. That's a one-page handout that provides information about some of the ideas we presented in this webinar. Building emotional vocabulary, building student-friendly definitions, and some other language-based goals and strategies for building emotional literacy. This next handout is the parent handout, which is also a one-page handout that gives some ideas that are maybe more conducive to teaching these skills at home and using language-based strategies and goals at home as well. The third handout I'll open here is called Using Storybooks to Build Emotional Vocabulary. You can see in this handout, there are some examples that might help you with building student-friendly or kid-friendly definitions. We have a few examples of some well-known storybooks here. We've given a plot summary and some examples of some emotion or feeling words that you can draw from the story, and some examples of what a student-friendly definition would look like. So you could start with those. We also have a nice book list with just a few ideas of stories that we have used over the years to talk about emotional literacy with students in classrooms and with children at home. So these are just some ideas. By no means is an exhaustive list. Really, any of your stories that you may have at home or in your classroom are great because all stories have characters with feelings. They just might not be explicitly said, but you can draw out and talk about feeling words in any story, because if a story is a story, then something interesting is happening, which then causes feelings with the characters. So lastly, we have a handout called Feeling Pics that's better described in this next slide. So we've given you a handout with a lot of picture cards with emotional words and pictures to use to build up a bank of emotion vocabulary with kids. So these are just a few. And what we've done is we've created a lot of more sparkly or $100 words that are linked to the words happy, mad, scared, and sad, because these are the words that most children use to describe their feelings. And we want to find ways for them to use more sparkly words. So as you can see from the example here, you can just even make your own very easily and very quickly. Just grab a piece of paper and draw a picture of a smiley face or an upset face. Here we have upset and thrilled that we're trying to teach. You don't have to use fancy pictures. There's a couple of examples of some just line drawings, but we've also given you a copy of the ones with these printed pictures as well. If you have a printer, I don't have a printer at home, but if you have a printer at home or you're able to print them at school, then you've also got those as a resource for you if you would like. This webinar was brought to you by the TDSB Speech Language Pathology Department. In this slide, you'll find links to our resources and ideas online, and you can follow us on social media.